Hello, and welcome to the next edition of the HP Discover podcast series. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Interarbor Solutions, your host and moderator for this ongoing sponsored discussion on IT innovation and how it's making an impact on people's lives. Once again, we're focusing on how companies are adapting to the new style of IT to improve IT performance and deliver better user experiences, as well as better business results. Our next innovation case study interview highlights how Exelon Corporation, based in Chicago, has been employing a great deal of technology and process to improve their operations and also to help manage a merger and acquisition transition period, as well as bring outsourced IT operations back in-house. To learn more about how Exelon, a leading energy provider in the U.S., a family of companies really with $23.5 billion in annual revenue, accomplishes these goals, we're joined by Jason Thomas. He's Manager of Service, Asset, and Release Management at Exelon, and he's based in Baltimore. Welcome, Jason.
All right, thank you, Dana. Pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, I gave a brief overview of Exelon, but tell us a little bit more. It's quite a large organization that you're involved with.
We are vast and expansive. We have a large nuclear fleet, around 40-odd nuclear power plants. There are 3 utilities, ComEd in Chicago in the Illinois space, Pepco out of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, and BGE in Baltimore. So we have a large urban utilities center. We have a large nuclear fleet. We also have a large retail presence with the Constellation brand and the sale of power, both to corporations and to users. So there's a lot that we do in obviously in the utility space, and there's some element of the commodity trading side as well, and trading power in those markets.
Great, and I imagine there must be quite a large IT organization to support all that.
There are 1,200 to 1,300 IT employees that's across the company, actually.
Tell us a bit about some of the challenges you've been facing in managing your IT operations, making them more efficient, and of course, we'd like to hear more about the merger between Constellation and Exelon back in 2012.
Sure. So a lot of the biggest challenge, of course, naturally is, as a result of the merger, obviously our scale and the number of, for lack of a better term, things that we had to monitor and be aware of and know about, vastly increased. So we had to address that, and so a lot of this was a lot of our efforts around the merger and post-merger were around consolidating bringing everything into one sort of standard monitoring platform, extending that monitoring out, leveraging the BSM suite of products, leveraging UCMDB. Then there was a lot of around consolidating asset management. In early 2013, we moved to Asset Manager as our asset management platform of choice, consolidating data from Exelon, from their tool, the CA Argus tool, into Asset Manager, in support of moving to new IT billing that would have been driven out of the data and Asset Manager, and leveraging some of the executive scorecard and financial management pieces to make that happen. There was also a large effort through 2013 to move the company to a standardized platform to support our service desk and our incident management, and also our service catalog for end users. But a lot of this was driven in last year around the insourcing of our relationship with CSC for our IT operations. This was to basically realize a savings to the company of 12 to 15 million annually. From the management of that contract, but to move both the management and the expertise in house, and leverage a lot of the processes that we built up and had grown through the company as a whole.
And so, knowing yourself well in terms of your IT infrastructure and all the elements of that is super important, and then bringing in a sourcing transition to the picture, so quite a bit of complexity. What do you get when you do this well? Is there a sense of better control, better security, culture? What is it that sort of rises to the top of your mind when you know that you've got your ITSM in order, when you've got your assets and configuration management data in order? Is it sleeping better at night? Is it a sense of destiny fulfilled? What?
It's sleeping better at night. There's an element of that. I think there's an element of the sleeping better at night, but I think there's also sometimes the aspect of, okay, great, now what's next? And so part of it is there's an evolutionary aspect too, where we've gotten everything in one place. We are leveraging some of our integrations, but then part of that is okay, what's next? And I think that while it's more restful, I think it's now is how do we better position ourselves to show the value of these platforms, which have, obviously there's a clear monetary value of what we did to insource, but now there's how do we show the business the value that we've done. And I think that moving to a common set of tools helps to get there. It helps to level. You level the playing field now, and you have that common set of tools that you can then drive to take you to the next level.
And what might that next level be? Is it a cloud transition? Is it more of a hybrid sourcing for IT? Is this enabling you to take advantage of a different device in terms of mobile? Where does it go?
I believe a lot of it's really around automation, sort of the intermediate step around cloud. We've looked at cloud. There are cloud. We do have areas where we've leveraged it. The company has leveraged it. IT is still trying to wrap their heads around how we do it, and then also how we expose that to the rest of the organization. But I do think that the steps we've done around automation is very key in making the operations a leaner operations IT operations org, but also being able to do things in an automated fashion as opposed to requiring the manual elements that in some cases that were done prior to the merger.
Okay. Any examples? You mentioned the $50 million in savings, but are there any other metrics of success or KPI level paybacks that you can point to in terms of having all this in place for managing and understanding your IT?
KPIs. They ding me on this one too. We've done a lot around. What's interesting is, and I apologize because I guess we'll probably sort of clean this up. We're still sort of going through, here it is 2 years. We're still going through what it is we're going to measure and present, and there's been a standard set of things that we've measured around our availability and our incidents, and those incidents are caused by IT, by infrastructure. So we've done a lot that are sort of either operational focused. Now it's taking some of those operational aspects and making them a little bit more business centric.
So Jason, having gone through quite a big and complex undertaking in getting your IT service management and application lifecycle management activities in order, for other companies that are going about this or starting to plan for it,
or going to do it all over again, as the case may be.
Or maybe a merger and acquisition is going to push them in a new direction.
We recently announced the intent to acquire Pepco Holdings, which is the regional utility in the Washington, D.C. area, to further widen our footprint in the Mid-Atlantic. Yeah, we get to do it all over again with a new partner. With a new partner by meaning bringing Pepco in and doing some elements of probably some of this again.
Mm-hmm. What words of wisdom might you provide in hindsight, having gone through this and anticipating yet another wave for those who are embarking on a more automated and, I suppose, streamlined and modern approach to IT operations?
I think one of the key things is that there's a large moving towards changing how you do IT operations and moving towards automation and even tools aside. There's a lot of organizational change because you're changing how people do what they do. You're changing people's jobs or their perception of that. And so I think you need to be clear. You need to clearly communicate, but you also need to make sure that you have the appropriate support and backing from leadership, and that the top-down communication is the same message. We certainly had that, and it was great. But there's always going to be that challenge of making sure everybody's getting that communication, getting the message, and constant reinforcement of that. Organizational change are huge. It's key to show the benefits, even to the people who are obviously going to reap some of those immediate benefits, right? Those in IT, the business is going to see some. It's couching that value in the means or method that's appropriate for those actors, all of those stakeholders, if you will.
Great. And of course, you mentioned working through a KPI definition and working the executive scorecard power. That sort of makes it full circle, doesn't it?
Yes. Well, I mean, it lets you defining those KPIs, but also having a place that is a one place where those KPIs can be viewed and seen easily and drilled into to some extent is big, because I think to date it's been a challenge to provide some of that historiography, if you will, around that data. Now you have something where you can more readily drill into it to see that data, and that's huge. I think it's presenting that and being able to show that, and being able to show it in a way that people can see it easily, as opposed to, well, here's a spreadsheet with some graphs, or here's a whiz-bang PowerPoint deck, is key. That by itself is huge.
And I suppose this, Jason, points to the fact that IT is really maturing compared to other business services and functions in corporations, things that have been evolving for 80 or 100 years. IT is, in a sense, catching up.
It's catching up, but I also think it's more of a reflection. It's a reflection of that a lot of the theme of the new style of IT, but a lot of that is that consumerization aspect, and the fact that in the last 10, you look at 10 years ago, the presence, just the wide presence of all of these of your smart devices and your smartphones are huge. We've brought something that was never easily accessible to most users, to most people, and having to take that same aspect and make it part of how you present what you do in IT is huge. I mean, you see it in how you're manifesting it in your various service catalogs, and some of the efforts that we're undertaking to refine and better and both refine our processes that underlie our technical services catalog, but actually have a better presentation layer of that technical services catalog with what we've seen with Propel. Those things are huge, and because it's an easier, nicer, friendlier way to interact, and people expect that. Why can't this be more like my app store, or why can't this be more like X? And that's huge. We've been able to see. I think is it necessarily is IT catching up, or is IT become more reachable? Has it become more warm and fuzzy, if you will, as opposed to something that's cold and hard and stored away somewhere that you kind of know about it, and perhaps the guys in the basement are the ones doing all the heavy lifting. It's more tangible.
A humanization of IT, perhaps.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. One last area I wanted to get into before we sign off. We heard quite a bit yesterday about the machine. HP unveiling more detail from its labs activities, not necessarily on a product roadmap yet, but is that something, that kind of power that's described through a lower footprint, much more rapid ability to join compute and memory, and then, of course, reduce the size of a data center down to the size of a refrigerator. I know, again, it's on the horizon, but how does that strike you? How interesting is that for you?
It's interesting because it allows you to get to a bit more of the ability to ramp up and ramp down based on what you need, as opposed to having X amount of servers and X amount of storage that's always somewhere. It gives you a lot more flexibility, and to some extent it gives you a bit more tunability. And I think it's directly applicable to certain aspects of the business where you need that capability to ramp up and ramp down much more easily. A lot of it. Actually, there was a conversation with one of my peers last night about that, and they were talking about how both that and sort of the moonshot aspect, and the ability to have that for a lot of the customer-facing websites, and the ability to have them, in particular, the utility customer-facing websites, whose utilization tends to spike during weather events. And while they don't spike all at the same time, there's the potential opportunity of, in the Mid-Atlantic, of all the usage spiking at the same time around a hurricane or Sandy-esque event. And so there's obviously, I think, there's obviously a need to be able to respond to that kind of demand, and that technology kind of positions you with the flexibility to do that rather quickly and easily.
Well, great. I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. We've been talking with Exelon Corporation, based in Chicago, about their journey towards a better handling of IT and transitions through mergers and acquisitions as a result of having a much deeper sense of their IT operations. So a big thank you to our guest, Jason Thomas, Manager of Service, Asset, and Release Management at Exelon. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dana. My pleasure.
And also a big thank you to our audience for joining us for this special new style of IT discussion. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Interarbor Solutions, your host for this ongoing series of HP-sponsored discussions. Thanks again for listening, and come back next time.